So we are glad to contribute to this conversation moving forward. In Ideas for Change, we do research and consulting. And a few years ago, we became very interested in having a deeper understanding about which was the dynamic of those organizations that were growing exponentially in very short time periods. So these strange babies, these strange organizations that appear and that we saw, like strange babies, no? Go to sleep in someone else's house, share their music here, this type of experience. Does everyone hear me? Yes, we keep it simple and we make sure that everything works. Okay, so as I was saying, we became very interested in these strange babies that were appearing and which were the dynamics. It's a bit scary to talk about growth just after Pedro pointed out that it may come back in a negative way, but I'm happy to discuss at the end about if it's good or if it's bad. My proposal now is that you follow me in terms of understanding the dynamic and understanding the logic that they propose. We understand growth as Paul Romer described it. So we understand that growth happens every time we are able to rearrange the available resources in such a way that we generate more value. This may seem like a very obvious, very simple definition, but it stresses in a very important thing, which is that growth is generated every time we are able to define, to develop a new combination. If we were in a kitchen, we would say that we generate growth every time we write a new recipe with the exact same ingredients. Every time with whatever we've got available, we are able to make a new formula, finally. Yes? So if I ask you, what's the formula of Wikipedia? You've all used Wikipedia for sure, probably in the last week or the last 2 days. So if I ask you, what's the formula of Wikipedia? Anyone would respond?
Collaboration.
Collaboration? But what's the formula? What's the formula for this collaboration? Wikipedia has?
I'm tapping 7 billion lines.
That's the way, that's the way.
Crowdsourcing.
Exactly. Wikipedia has a formula which states, tell me what you know, that I will tell everyone. Yes? A little bit what we are pointing out. Crowdsourcing the already existing knowledge. It assumes that everything that human knows, a human knows it, no? And then it makes us this question, tell me what you know that I will tell everyone. With this very simple formula, Wikipedia made obsolete all the existing encyclopedia business that existed up until then. We can think from the Britannica, that is the classical one with all the experts contributed to encyclopedias, or we can think about Encarta, which is the version that Microsoft proposed us at the beginning of the 2000s. Yes? How many people in the room now have an encyclopedia at home? 1, 2, 3. Owned by you or by your parents? Okay. This is the logic I want to transmit you. Simple formulas that show us that if we are able to rearrange the existing resources in a way that we generate more value, there is where we are sparking growth. Okay, another question. BlaBlaCar. Everyone knows BlaBlaCar? So the question is the same one. What's the formula of BlaBlaCar?
Tell me where you're going.
M?
And I'll tell people.
Vale, close to that. BlaBlaCar states, tell me where you go, then I'll try to find someone with whom you can share the trip and the costs. Yes? Thanks to this simple formula, BlaBlaCar moves more than 4 million people in Europe, and it's now spreading to Latin America, South America and Latin America. BlaBlaCar moves all these people using the exact same amount of cars, the exact same amount of gas, and the same roads. Finally, with the same pollution that we were willing to generate before. See, again, if you're able to look around you and redefine the way and combine the things that are available, in a different way that you generate more value, you are creating growth. What we've identified, I don't know if many of you remember the combinatory formula that they show us in school. If you combine n groups in n and n, you will arrive to da-da-da. I'm not very good at math, so I won't bring the formula to the table. But we identified that there are 3 factors that allow us to see which is the range of possibilities, the range of potential combinations we are able to design as a society. The first one is the elements. How many elements can we combine? No? This may sound very simple, but the number of elements that we are able to combine is defined by the technological evolutions. What we see is that every technological change redefines what's scarce and what's abundant. And this allows us to see which are the possible combinations we can do with different resources. The example of Wikipedia is very clear. If we didn't have the World Wide Web, it wouldn't have been possible to develop Wikipedia, no? So every time you see a technology, I would invite you to make yourself the question, what does this technology change in terms of what's scarce and what's abundant? And then you will be able to envision which possible combinations we can see in this regard. The second one, the second factor that determines the number of combinations that we can do as a society is the rules. Finally, the socially accepted types of trust. No? We come from a world where trust was basically within institutions, political institutions, or within large corporations. And all of a sudden, we are seeing that there are new types of trust that are being socially accepted. We've talked about the case of BlaBlaCar, but I think all throughout the day, we've seen many examples where we give trust among peers for certain interactions, and we are able to arrive farther than with any institution. So we see that every time that there's a change in trust rules, there is the possibility to generate new combinations. But we were talking this morning about blockchain and the possibilities it brings. So the trust in code. We were talking about the open, no? The trust in open knowledge. GitHub is a great example. But of course, all these things redefine the possible combinations. And finally, we've got the agents. So the number of people who are able to really develop all these combinations. And I think here, we've had many personal stories, but not only personal, but collective stories of people who are bringing change through the resources they have available. I think the capacities that we have now as citizens have expanded a lot in the recent years, and the ones who are able to generate combinations are many. And I think the example that Steve was bringing this morning to the table, saying basic income not provided by a government, but provided among citizens, shows or represents the power that we have now as agents, as citizens, which was not possible some years before. So in Ideas for Change, as I told you, we do research and we do consulting, and we started to become very excited observing all these changes around us and all these strange organizations that were changing the way we did things. So what we did was to study 50 organizations that had grown more than 50% during 5 years in a row in the number of users and in revenue. 1 second that I drink some water. As you can see, none of these organizations are strange, no? They are all these rare organizations that all of a sudden receive either a subscription from us every month, or organizations where we spend a lot of time. Yes, and we can see that they go from things that are healthcare, from knowledge, from so many different fields. As a result of all the research process that we did, we developed this framework, which is Pentagrowth. Pentagrowth defines 5 levers which help us. I would say it's like a map a little bit, a navigator, that help us to ask right questions to all the emerging organizations. It's a tool we use with existing organizations in order to analyze how they are designed, and if they are designed in the right manner in order to reach the goals they have set of themselves. And it's also a tool that we use to help organizations design themselves. The 5 levers are the following ones. The first one is connect. And this lever is related to the first learning that we observed in our study. We saw that every time that there's a change in the reference network, so when we go from the World Wide Web to the social, or when we go from the social to the mobile, the organizations that are designed for each of these networks grow twice as fast. So an organization that was designed from the mobile grew twice as fast as the ones that were designed to be born and to develop themselves within the social networks. The same thing that we are observing now, although it is still very embryonic, with the Internet of Things. The second lever has to do with the inventory. So how do all these organizations add new units of value to their inventory? Do they do all the effort internally, as we used to do? So if you want to build a hotel, you hire human resources, you find an architect, you start building the place, you train the people, and then after a year, you start providing the service. Things such as Candy Crush or Angry Birds happen in their atmosphere. So what we see is that instead of deciding that they take 100% of the market that they were opening, they decided to provide certain tools to third parties and say, hey, I deserve a 30% of the revenue that you make, and I keep certain rights. No? So if there's things that I don't want to give to others, I keep them for myself. But by doing this move, they arrive somewhere else than BlackBerry, no? Which is an item that has disappeared from our atmosphere, from our environment. Finally, we can see that there's a third option, which is what Google does with Android, yes? Which is absolutely open. Well, it used to be. Now it's not that much. But this is what allowed to all the mobiles, which are Samsung, Huawei, or whatever, to have Google Play within the operating system. And finally, we will discover how do these organizations share their knowledge. We see the more knowledge you share with relevant communities, the most likely it is that these communities allow you to explore places you would have never arrived to. So seeing how these organizations share their knowledge determines how fast they grow and how far they arrive. So I'll go very fast through the 5 levers with specific examples that I think help us to represent them and understand the dynamics. And then we've got 4 minutes for this, and then we open the conversation, yes? The first one is Tinder. And you will know that before Tinder there was Match.com. Match.com was 5 times bigger than the summatory of the competitors that it had by the time. 5 times bigger. When Tinder appeared, and Match had done 3 applications already, 3 mobile applications. It's not that they were not aware about the fact that people were using their mobiles, no. The problem was that they were designing the platform that they have on their computer, the screen experience, into the mobile. And when you use your phone, you use it in a different way. So if you have your phone in your pocket, do they have to ask you, where are you? No. They know that I'm not in Barcelona, they know that I'm in Porto, no? Do they have to ask me what's my name, what do I like, if they can make me access with my Facebook account? No. If you access with your Facebook account, we know your name, we know what you like, and we will also know if I share some friends with you or not, just in case you have interest in knowing that. Yes? So what we saw is that Match.com, who has, well, I will not ask, but who can let's see. No one has Match.com as an app in their phone, while Tinder has become a verb. Yes? Designing yourself for a new network is not adding a like to your page. It's not having necessarily an app. It's redefining the experience completely. And what we see is that if we move in this lever, the rhythm, as you design yourself to be outside the lever, the rhythm of the acceleration of growth increases. Yes? Second example, and I think this one must be very familiar to all of you because we've seen it growing exponentially, and is Airbnb. We had the example of the hotel, where everything is centralized, the effort, the human effort, the financial effort, everything is absolutely centralized. while Airbnb puts itself in a different position. It's exactly the same example as BlaBlaCar with Abanca, or I don't know what the name is here, or many of the examples that we see related to the collaborative economy. Yes? On the extreme, we've got organizations that build on top of the commons. We see people that are developing their businesses in YouTube. Yes, of course, we all can. We all have the right to be there. So we know, what we see is that the less internal effort the organization has to do to increase the inventory, the higher the growth rate you can have. The fourth one is related to user capabilities. And this role that we've seen evolving, which is the role of the user producer. Here we could see each one of us again seeing ourselves as producer when we provide a place to sleep in Airbnb. But this example is really, really amazing. Does anyone know Be My Eyes?
No. Yeah.
Anyone wants to share in a tweet?
No, I don't
Whoever.
know. No, it's a lot of people who are blind to request help from somebody else.
All around the world.
All around the world. Sometimes things as simple as I need to choose the color of a dress that I'm going to wear,
Yeah?
and they just request help, and people just say, oh, the right one is the blue, the left is red.
Perfect. So what we see, it's an app that has two types of users. I'm running out of time. Has two types of users. One type of user is people who have some visual problems, and on the other hand, volunteers from all around the globe. The idea is that every time that someone who is blind or has problems at watching, seeing, I don't know the
No,
correct
visually
term.
impaired.
Visually impaired, thank you, can ask to anyone around the world for simple questions. The classical example is checking out if something is caducado, has passed, the prime period has passed or not.
Okay.
Yes? So you just show it, and for us to say yes or no is an extremely simple thing, but it shows that, but it gives a lot of agency for visually impaired people. Yes? So what we see is that the number of roads that we can take is developing. And the more roads we are able to integrate in the production process, the more likely the organization is to grow faster. The third one is the one we were talking about, Apple versus Android versus BlackBerry, if you want. Other examplos would be, you know, La Rouge Kiwi or La Colmena KTC. I don't know if it's active in Portugal or not, but it's an organization that puts in contact local consumers with local producers of fruits and vegetables, with the aim to generate a new market where you can get to know the producers of the food that you consume. In this relationship, the platform takes part of it, but any one of us can say, okay, I want a colmena, we call it in Spanish, in my neighborhood, so I'm willing to coordinate and to orchestrate neighbors and producers. I could go, register, they would give me certain guidance in the process of setting it up, but after that, what we do, they create a market because I get 8% of the amount of transactions that are generated in my colmena. The platform takes 8%, but all the rest is led to local producers. So what we see is that they are open space for third parties to develop their own businesses. On the edge, we've got the process of co-creation. And finally, how do you share knowledge? And again, I think everyone here must know this example, which is TED. TED started as a very VIP conference where they were exploring the future of creativity, blah, blah, blah. You all know about it, no? In 2009, they did a very strange thing, which was first to record all the talks that were given in that scenario and to open them online. So they were providing all the content for everyone, which is a very strange move, taking into account that their business model was to sell tickets. And the second thing was that all of a sudden they created this new brand, which is TEDx, that implied that anyone could take the brand, and if you followed certain conditions, you could generate a TEDx in your neighborhood. What was the effect of doing these two moves for TEDx, which is finally open their knowledge knowledge in terms of content, knowledge in terms of producing an event. The effect was that the prices of the global event that they were organizing, like the TEDx, grew a lot. Because all of a sudden, we all knew what was TEDx, and we understood the value of going to that conference to network to the people that they were attracting. And on the other hand, thanks to the fact that they were having TEDx all around the world in very unexpected places, they were able to spot talent where they would have never arrived. And of course, the value of the central event grew a lot. So again, what they did was to share their knowledge. I think I'll leave it here. I was going to share the learnings, but finally what we see is that you grow every time you're able to look outside and develop all these new combinations with the resources that are already available. And the second thing is that these models are contributive. So they learn how to generate a lot of value, and not only for themselves, but for the ecosystem. And then they learn how to get part of this value. With a 10% of something that is very big, you can already survive. So that's all. Thank you.